Governor, how does 6 years as the mayor of a small town and less than 2 years as governor of a sparsely populated state give you sufficient experience to perhaps be president?
Remember again what John McCain was looking for in a running mate. Someone who has a track record of reform, someone who doesn't just talk the talk, but has proven that she can walk the walk with reform. And knowing that that is the way I'm wired, that is my commitment also, I think he made the right decision there in his partner.
But this is not just reforming a government. This is also running a government on the huge international stage in a very dangerous world. When I asked John McCain about your national security credentials, he cited the fact that you have command of the Alaska National Guard and that Alaska is close to Russia. Are those sufficient credentials?
But it is about reform of government, and it's about putting government back on the side of the people. And that has much to do with foreign policy and national security issues.
Did you ever travel outside the country prior to your trip to Kuwait and Germany last year?
Canada, Mexico. And then, yeah, that trip, that was a trip of a lifetime to visit our troops in Kuwait and stop and visit our injured soldiers in Germany. That was a trip of a lifetime, and it changed my life.
Have you ever met a foreign head of state?
There in the state of Alaska, our international trade activities bring in many leaders of other countries.
And all governors deal with trade delegations who act at the behest of their governments. I'm talking about somebody who's a head of state who can negotiate for that country. Ever met one?
I have not, and I think if you go back in history and if you ask that question of many vice presidents, they may have the same answer that I just gave you.
Let me ask you about some specific national security situations.
Sure.
Let's start, because we are near Russia, let's start with Russia and Georgia. The administration has said we've got to maintain the territorial integrity of Georgia. Do you believe the United States should try to restore Georgian sovereignty over South Ossetia and Abkhazia?
First off, we're going to continue good relations with Saakashvili there. I was able to speak with him the other day and giving him my commitment as John McCain's running mate that we will be committed to Georgia.
What insight into Russian actions, particularly in the last couple of weeks, does the proximity of the state give you?
They're our next door neighbors, and you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska. From an island in Alaska.
What insight does that give you into what they're doing in Georgia?
Well, I'm giving you that perspective of how small our world is and how important it is that we work with our allies to keep good relations with all of these countries. Especially Russia. We will not repeat a Cold War. We must have good relationship with our allies, pressuring, also helping us to remind Russia that it's in their benefit also, a mutually beneficial relationship for us to all be getting along.
Would you favor putting Georgia and Ukraine into NATO?
Ukraine, definitely, yes. Yes, and Georgia.
Because Putin has said he would not tolerate NATO incursion into the Caucasus.
Well, you know, the Rose Revolution, the Orange Revolution, those actions have showed us that those democratic nations, I believe, deserve to be in NATO. Putin thinks otherwise. Obviously, he thinks otherwise.
And under the NATO treaty, wouldn't we then have to go to war if Russia went into Georgia?
Perhaps so. I mean, that is the agreement when you are a NATO ally, is if another country is attacked, you're going to be expected to be called upon and help.
Let me turn to Iraq. You said in 2007, you were asked about the surge. And you said, I've been so focused on state government, I haven't really focused much on the war in Iraq. Really? Somebody who wants to be vice president hasn't focused on Iraq?
Of course I've been focused on the war. Of course I've been. As every American has been.
Why'd you say that?
Since 9/11. And what we're doing in Iraq today, I believe, is the right thing, as we are standing shoulder to shoulder with the Iraqi people, fighting against Al-Qaeda, fighting against Shia extremists and other terrorists who would seek to destroy Iraq's democracy, who would seek to destroy America and our allies.
You said recently in your old church, our national leaders are sending U.S. soldiers on a task that is from God.
Pray for our military men and women who are striving to do what is right also for this country, that our leaders, our national leaders, are sending them out on a task that is from God.
Are we fighting a holy war?
The reference there is a repeat of Abraham Lincoln's words when he said, first he suggested, never presume to know what God's will is, and I would never presume to know God's will or to speak God's words. But what Abraham Lincoln had said was, let us not pray that God is on our side in a war or any other time, but let us pray that we are on God's side. That's what that comment was all about, Charlie. And I do believe, though, that this war against extreme Islamic terrorists is the right thing. It's an unfortunate thing because war is hell. And I hate war. And Charlie, today is the day that I send my firstborn, my son, my teenage son, overseas with his Stryker Brigade, 4,000 other wonderful American men and women to fight for our country, for democracy, for our freedoms.
I take your point about Lincoln's words, but you went on and said there is a plan, and it is God's plan.
I believe that there is a plan for this world, and that plan for this world is for good. I believe that there is great hope and great potential for every country to be able to live and be protected with inalienable rights that I believe are God-given, Charlie. And I believe that those are the rights to life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. That, in my worldview, is the grand plan.